Thank you very much, Osama. I'm very happy to be here this morning, and I congratulate you all for getting up and coming here to what is called Eros Hotel. I still know it as the Intercontinental, right? That was it. I want to focus on what the editor of Mint just said, that the mobile is the most important thing which has come to India in a long, long time. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to contextualize for yourself and for everybody here on the stage why it is so absolutely important that something like Mbillion has developed as an institution, both for government, for business, as well as for society. Now, my story starts, and how do I operate the slides, Osama? I see. The story starts with the United Nations. In the year 1998, the General Assembly got together for the first time, and they looked at what was then seen as the computer revolution. And in the year 2000, the General Assembly of the United Nations gave a mandate to the ITU, to UNESCO, and to a number of other United Nations agencies to look at what is the transformation through computers into what we call today the information society. And obviously, at that time, the computers were running already for 40 years, and people were realizing that computers connected to telecommunications infrastructure are really revolutionizing not just our sense of time and space, but in terms of how actually societies can develop. And that's the birth of what we call ICT for development. And in the year 2003 and 2005, the United Nations had big international conferences, one in Geneva and one in Tunis, regarding this issue. Next slide, please. And the issue at that time was the issue of how to actually get, you have to click, 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 and do quicker, to basically to how to deal with the digital divide. At that time, the image which people had was, who has to walk for 3 days or more to get to a telephone booth? And it was understood that unless you get to a telephone, you're not able to call support services if your kid is sick, your wife pregnant, or if you want to basically order something which you need in order to sanitize your water. And so the idea of the United Nations and the ITU was to basically close the infrastructure problems of access and get people like Vodafone to roll out across the world. Now, what was the idea of Manson Award and Mbillion Award in relationship to what United Nations decided then? The idea is that all infrastructure, all technology, and all devices do not matter if you are not having good content and innovative applications, because this is what counts. Next slide, please. So what we together around the world as an initiative coming from Austria developed was actually to address not just the infrastructure and the cost and the device divide, but also the content gap. And the content gap is something which we try to address not by theory, but by example. And anybody of you who is here in this room now and who is an entrepreneur on the content and application side is helping to close this gap. Next slide, please. What the World Summit Award does is, if we do it in 155 countries, operationally, and in 168 in terms of outreach, to look at what are best practices, because you cannot learn from theory, but only from example. Why is that? Now, most of you are not asleep anymore this morning, but so I can ask you a question. What do you think is the difference between the obelisk, which is standing on the Place de Concorde in Paris, which is coming from Egypt, and the broadcasting tower on top of the Empire State Building? What's the difference, Assis? Do you know? Very good. First point is the broadcasting tower is connected to the rest of the world, and the obelisk is standing there by himself. Now, this is a difference. In terms of my argument, however, it would be that there is no difference between the two. Next slide, please. Because if you look at human history and human civilization, we can say that we lived and our species developed for 1 million years without media. And then for 10,000 years, including from the times of the Egyptians up until the time of when actually the Empire State Building was built and the new broadcast tower for television was put on and CNN broadcast from there, it's unresponsive media. What we have today and what brings us with this is interactive media. Each and every one of you in this room knows that unless you are actually leveraging interactivity for value of the user, you're out of business. Now, MBillions is important because it looks at interactive content. Next slide, please. Now, what is the difference between what you see on the left and what you see on the right? You see 500 years of difference in terms of media technology. But if I take a book and I give you this book, you immediately see the quality of content. It's immediately accessible. If I show you a phone, you don't see content, you see the device. If you don't have MBillions, if you're not having that kind of mechanism of looking at what is the quality of content, the intransparency, next slide, the intransparency of media will not allow you to judge the quality of content. When Osama made the introduction now, he said to me that what he learned is the jurying process. The jurying process is important because you have the best available expert opinion to assess the quality of content. This device is measured in quantities of performance, in pixels, in hertz, in storage capacity, in transmission speed. Why is it so important that Vodafone is a partner of MBillions? Because in the end, the performance of the device will create value only in respect to the quality of content and applications. And that is critical. Next slide, please. What is the difference, however, when we look at those two examples? On the one hand, on the left hand, a storytelling situation of somebody who tells a story, and on the right side, the grid, the web of information which we find through digital media. a storytelling situation of somebody who tells a story, and on the right side, the grid, the web of information which we find through digital media. Next slide, please. The very difference is that when we tell stories in an oral society like India, we still follow an oral narrative of a line. While digital media offer to us something which is a space, and that space we call knowledge. So when we talk about entering into a knowledge society, we talk about the difference in terms of that the story is laid out like a space and that we have to learn in terms of how to navigate in the space rather than to be pulled along like a train by the narrative of a storyline. Ambience and award schemes like this are absolutely critical mechanisms in order to open up the evaluation of the knowledge dimension of digital media. Next slide, please. Within the partnership which we have through the World Summit Award, we can demonstrate the richness and diversity of what content does in order to stimulate this development. And when Mint reports on this, you're not just reporting on new business models, but you're reporting on what is the dawn of a different kind of age. Next slide, please. So, in this sense, we have actually entered into a completely new, not just media space, not just technology space, not just cultural space, but a different kind of space of civilization. And to find paths there, we need events like today, we need discussions like today, we need celebrations like today. Thank you very much. I brought a gift for the government of India, which is a jewel box, and I want to use the opportunity, Osama, if you permit me, to present it to the highest representatives. So this is the jewel box of World Summit Award, collections from 160 countries, and I'm happy to present it to you.